The ultimatum, the Galactic Confederation had existed for 12,000 years without major conflict. It was a marvel of civilization. A union of 39 species bound by treaties, trade agreements, and a shared belief in orderly expansion. The Confederation's greatest achievement was not its technology or its wealth, but its ability to prevent war through careful regulation. Every star system was catalogued. Every habitable world was classified. Every species knew its place in the grand design. The central authority governed from the orbital city of Luminos, a structure so vast it could be seen from 3 star systems away. Inside its gleaming halls, representatives debated policy with calm voices and measured gestures. Violence was a concept from the primitive past, something to be studied in history but never practiced in the present. High Chancellor Vorix of the Krell Empire stood before the Authority Council, his 4 crystalline eyes reflecting the soft blue light of the chamber. The Krell were the eldest species in the Confederation, their civilization predating most others by millennia. They were tall beings, their bodies composed of semi-translucent material that shifted colors with their emotions. Vorix's color was a deep purple, indicating concern. "We have a situation that requires immediate attention," Vorix announced, his voice resonating through translation devices. "A new species has been establishing colonies in Sector 447, within protected expansion zones." The council chamber stirred with interest. New species were rare, and those that reached spacefaring capability were always watched carefully. Integration into the Confederation was a delicate process. "Identify the species," requested Council Member Thara, a Velnith whose serpentine body coiled around her floating platform. "They call themselves humans," Vorix replied. "They originated from a world they name Earth, located in what they call the Orion Spur. They have established 17 colonies over the past 50 standard years, 12 of which are in protected zones designated for future Krell expansion." The chamber filled with soft murmurs. Protected zones were sacred. They ensured that no species would lack room to grow, that resources would be distributed fairly across millennia of careful planning. "Have they been contacted?" asked Thara. "Yes. 3 months ago we sent diplomatic envoys. The humans were polite but firm. They claimed the worlds were uninhabited and unclaimed. They refused to recognize our expansion rights." "Ignorance of the law is no excuse," stated Council Member Drex, a massive being whose species communicated through bioluminescent patterns. "They must be educated and integrated. Standard protocol." Vorix's color shifted slightly toward red. "We attempted standard integration. They rejected it. They refused to accept junior membership status. They demand full voting rights immediately." This caused an uproar. Junior membership was mandatory for new species. It lasted a minimum of 200 standard years, a period during which the newcomers learned Confederation law, proved their stability, and earned their place. No exception had ever been made. "Their demands are impossible," Thara said flatly. "We cannot rewrite 12,000 years of tradition for one arrogant species." "Agreed," Vorix responded. "Which is why I propose we demonstrate the consequences of defiance. A limited military action against their newest colony, Titan's Edge. 3,000 inhabitants, minimal defenses. We destroy their infrastructure, evacuate the population to a processing world, and make it clear that the Confederation's laws are absolute." The council voted, 37 in favor, 2 abstentions. The decision was made with the same calm efficiency that governed all Confederation business. Ambassador David Jackson received the ultimatum in his quarters aboard the diplomatic station. He was a broad-shouldered man of 52, with gray hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent years in difficult negotiations. He had served humanity in 12 first contact scenarios. He knew how to read alien body language, how to find compromise, how to build bridges between vastly different cultures. But as he read the message, he felt those skills crumbling to dust. Remove all human presence from protected zones within 30 standard days, or face military consequences. He immediately requested an emergency meeting with Chancellor Vorix. They met in a neutral conference room, just the 2 of them and their respective aides. "Chancellor, please reconsider," Jackson said, keeping his voice level despite the anger burning in his chest. "Those worlds were empty. No structures, no claims, no markers. Our people have lived there for decades. They've built homes, farms, schools. You're asking us to abandon everything." Vorix's color remained steady purple. Your people built on land that was not theirs to claim. The protected zones were established 4,000 years ago. Every member species respects them. We weren't members 4,000 years ago. We weren't even spacefaring, which is precisely why you must learn to follow our laws now. Jackson leaned forward. We're willing to compromise. We'll halt all new expansion. We'll accept observation status. We'll pay compensation for the zones. But we cannot abandon established colonies. These are people's lives. The Confederation does not negotiate with those who break its laws, Vorik said coldly. Your 30 days begin now. Jackson returned to Earth immediately. He met with the United Earth Council in Geneva, in the same building where humanity had first unified a century earlier. The chamber was packed with representatives from every nation, every colony, every military branch. He delivered his report with brutal honesty. They're not going to negotiate. They see us as children who need to be punished. They plan to attack Titan's Edge to make an example of us. General Sarah Martinez, head of the United Earth Defense Force, stood up. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for strategic brilliance. What are their military capabilities? Overwhelming, Jackson admitted. They have 10,000 warships, weapons we barely understand, shields that can withstand nuclear blasts, and they've never lost a war in 12,000 years. What about their war doctrine? Martinez asked. Limited, calculated. They fight to disable, not destroy. Their conflicts rarely last more than a few weeks, and casualties are always minimal. They have rules about civilian protection, infrastructure preservation, surrender protocols. War is a tool of policy for them, not a fight for survival. Martinez smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Then they've never fought anyone who had nothing to lose. 3 weeks later, the Krell fleet arrived at Titan's Edge. Commander Zelrax led the force, a veteran of 8 different enforcement actions. His fleet consisted of 50 warships, more than enough for this simple task. The planet below was primarily a mining colony, carved into the surface of a mineral-rich moon. Scanners showed the expected signatures: residential domes, processing facilities, landing pads. Transmit the evacuation order, Zelrax commanded. All civilians have 6 hours to board transport ships. After that, we disable their infrastructure and withdraw. The transmission went out. Zelrax expected compliance. In every previous enforcement action, the target species had surrendered immediately once they realized resistance was futile. The response came 5 minutes later. A human face appeared on the view screen, a woman in her 30s with tied-back blonde hair and exhausted eyes. This is Governor Michelle Torres of Titan's Edge. We reject your evacuation order. Zelrax's color shifted to orange, indicating confusion. Governor, you have no choice. We are authorized to use force if necessary. Torres nodded slowly. I understand. And I want you to understand something in return. We spent the last 3 weeks preparing for your arrival. Every mine shaft is rigged with explosives. Every dome has demolition charges. Every processing facility has been sabotaged. We've placed seismic destabilizers along the major fault lines. You're bluffing, Zelrax said, though his color betrayed his uncertainty. We're not. Torres held up a remote device. Everyone has been evacuated already. Right now, I'm the only person left on Titan's Edge. And in 60 seconds, I'm going to press this button. This moon will tear itself apart. That's insane, Zelrax shouted. You'll destroy years of work, billions in resources. Torres's expression hardened. Better we destroy it than give it to you. You wanted to teach us a lesson about respecting your laws? Let me teach you a lesson about humans. We don't surrender what we've built. We don't bow to threats. And if you try to take what's ours, we'll make sure you get nothing but rubble. She pressed the button. The moon didn't explode all at once. First came the seismic charges, planted deep along tectonic weaknesses. The surface rippled like water. Then the mines detonated in sequence, thousands of carefully placed explosives going off in a chain reaction. The domes imploded. The processing facilities vanished in clouds of debris. The landing pads buckled and shattered. Zelrax watched in horror as an entire colony destroyed itself. The shockwaves sent fragments of rock and metal hurtling into space. 3 of his ships took damage from the debris field. Alarms screamed across his bridge. Within 10 minutes, Titan's Edge was gone. Where there had been a functioning colony, there was now only a fractured, dead rock spinning slowly in the darkness. Zelrax sent an immediate report to Chancellor Vorik. The message was simple and devastating. Mission failed. Colony destroyed by its own inhabitants. requesting new orders. Back on Earth, General Martinez stood in the war room, watching the satellite feed from Titan's Edge. Around her, military officers from every branch waited in tense silence. "Broadcast this across all channels," Martinez ordered. "I want every species in the Confederation to see what happened. And I want them to hear our message." The broadcast went out within the hour. It showed the destruction of Titan's Edge from multiple angles. It showed Governor Torres pressing the button. It showed the colony tearing itself apart. And then Ambassador Jackson appeared on screen, speaking directly to the camera. "This is humanity's answer to the Galactic Confederation," he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "You came to our world expecting us to surrender. You thought we would give up everything we built because you have bigger fleets and older laws. You were wrong." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We are not a species that surrenders easily. Our history is filled with people who chose destruction over subjugation. We have burned our own cities rather than let invaders take them. We have scorched our own earth rather than let enemies profit from our land. This is not cruelty. This is principle." Another pause. "You have 12 colonies left to choose from. Attack any of them and you will find the same result. We will evacuate our people, and we will destroy everything else. You will gain nothing but ashes. You will win nothing but wasteland. Every world you take will cost you more than it's worth." Jackson's expression hardened into something cold and final. "Leave us alone, or we will teach you what total war means. We will burn everything, and when the galaxy is covered in the ruins of what could have been, you will remember that you started this. You will remember that we gave you every chance to choose peace." The broadcast ended. In the Confederation Council chamber, silence reigned for the first time in centuries. Chancellor Vorik stared at the dark screen, his color cycling through shades of purple, orange, and red. Around him, council members exchanged horrified glances. "They destroyed their own colony," Thara whispered. "Their own people's work. Years of effort, just gone." "They evacuated everyone first," noted Drex, "and they killed no one. But they destroyed everything of value." Vorix finally spoke, his voice hollow. "What kind of species does this?" No one had an answer. But in the darkness of space, human ships began to move, and the Confederation was about to learn that humanity's reply to war was not surrender. It was annihilation. The scorched galaxy. The Confederation's response came swiftly. Chancellor Vorix convened an emergency session of the full council, broadcast across all 39 member species. His color had settled into a deep crimson, the Krell indicator of righteous anger. "The humans have committed an act of barbarism unprecedented in Confederation history," Vorix announced to billions watching across the galaxy. "They have destroyed their own infrastructure rather than accept legitimate authority. They have rejected the order that has kept peace for 12 millennia. This cannot stand." He raised all four of his arms in a gesture of finality. "I propose full military action against human space. Not to conquer, but to contain. We will blockade their remaining colonies. We will isolate Earth itself. We will teach them that civilization has rules and those who break them face consequences." The vote was overwhelming. 36 species in favor, 3 abstaining. None opposed. Within days, the largest military fleet in Confederation history began to assemble. 2,000 warships from a dozen different species, all converging on human space. It was meant to be a show of overwhelming force. A demonstration that would break human resistance without firing a shot. Admiral Chen Wei watched the enemy fleet approach from her command ship, the UES Relentless. She was a thin woman of 63, with silver hair cut short and eyes that had seen 3 colonial wars before humanity ever met the Confederation. Her uniform was simple, bearing only the rank insignia and the Earth Defense Force emblem. "Status report," she ordered. "Confederation fleet entering the Meridian Cluster," her tactical officer replied. 2,000 ships moving in standard formation. "They're heading for New Vancouver." Chen nodded slowly. New Vancouver was humanity's most prosperous colony, home to 8 million people. It had factories, farms, universities, and cultural centers that had taken 70 years to build. It was also completely evacuated. "Execute Doctrine Omega Phase 1, Chen commanded. Across human space, the plan that had been prepared in absolute secrecy began to unfold. It wasn't a traditional military strategy. There would be no fleet engagements, no desperate last stands, no heroic sacrifices. Instead, humanity would do what it had done at Titan's Edge, but on a scale the galaxy had never imagined. At New Vancouver, autonomous systems activated. Every building, every factory, every piece of infrastructure had been rigged over the past 3 weeks. Not with simple explosives, but with sophisticated demolition charges placed at precise structural points. The goal wasn't just destruction, it was absolute erasure. The Confederation fleet arrived expecting resistance. What they found was an empty world in its final moments. Commander Yalrix of the Thren species led the advance force. His orders were clear. Secure the orbital stations, establish control, begin processing evacuated civilians. His sensors showed the planet below, cities intact. Lights still functioning in some areas. Something's wrong, his science officer reported. No life signs. No communications. No active defenses. Before Yalrix could respond, the planet began to die. The demolition sequence started at the poles and worked inward. Fusion reactors overloaded in controlled bursts, vaporizing the power infrastructure. Factories detonated from within. Their own manufacturing systems turned into weapons against themselves. Atmospheric processors released chemical agents that would render the air toxic for centuries. Underground aquifers were contaminated with radioactive waste. The cities didn't just explode. They were systematically dismantled, reduced to dust and slag. 70 years of human achievement erased in 90 minutes. Yalrix watched in frozen horror as an entire civilization unmade itself. His fleet had come to conquer, to control, to occupy. Instead, they witnessed the most thorough act of self-destruction in galactic history. "Pull back," Yalrix ordered. "Get the fleet to safe distance." But the destruction wasn't finished. The humans had placed gravity mines throughout the system, hidden among the asteroid fields. As the Confederation fleet scrambled to retreat, the mines activated. They didn't explode with conventional force. Instead, they generated localized gravity wells, pulling ships off course, disrupting formations, causing collisions. 50 Confederation ships were damaged. 7 were destroyed completely, crushed by gravitational forces they couldn't escape. The survivors limped back to Confederation space carrying a single message from Admiral Chen, broadcast on all frequencies. "This is your second lesson. Leave or we continue." But the Confederation couldn't leave. Pride, tradition, and the weight of 12,000 years of unchallenged authority demanded they press forward. Chancellor Vorix ordered the fleet to split into smaller battle groups. They would attack all remaining human colonies simultaneously, overwhelming them before they could destroy themselves. It was a sound strategy against any conventional enemy. Humanity wasn't conventional. Admiral Chen had anticipated this move. She activated Phase 2 of Doctrine Omega, the Ghost Fleet. Humanity's warships were inferior to Confederation vessels in almost every way. Human shields were weaker, human weapons less powerful, human ships slower. In a direct engagement, humanity would lose every time. So Admiral Chen made sure there would be no direct engagements. The Ghost Fleet consisted of 300 human warships divided into strike groups of 3 to 5 ships each. They didn't defend colonies or fight pitched battles. Instead, they appeared without warning in Confederation territory, struck vital infrastructure, and vanished before defenders could respond. The Krell fuel depot at Xanthus Prime went first. 3 human destroyers appeared via short-range jump, launched a devastating salvo of kinetic weapons, and disappeared. The depot exploded with enough force to sterilize the moon it orbited. 2 days later, a Confederation supply convoy was ambushed in the Helios corridor. 4 human frigates materialized from hiding positions among the asteroids, destroyed every cargo ship, and vanished before the escort vessels could return. Fire, then a water treatment facility on Velnith, then a manufacturing complex on Thren Prime, then a communication relay station in the outer reaches. The pattern continued for weeks. The Confederation couldn't predict where the humans would strike next. Their territory was vast. Their infrastructure spread across hundreds of systems. The humans only needed to find the vulnerable points and hit them hard enough to cripple. But the most devastating attacks weren't against military targets. Admiral Chen had studied Confederation psychology carefully. She understood what truly motivated these species who had never known desperation. She ordered strikes against their monuments. The Krell had built the Eternal Archive on their homeworld's moon, a crystalline structure containing 12,000 years of history, art, and cultural achievement. It was considered the most beautiful building in the known galaxy, a place of pilgrimage for billions. Lieutenant Commander James Park led the strike team. His ship, the UES Shadow, approached the moon using stealth technology humanity had developed specifically for this war. They had one chance to get this right. Target locked, Park's weapons officer reported. Orbital bombardment solution ready. Park hesitated for just a moment. He thought about the archive below, about the irreplaceable knowledge it contained. He thought about the Krell who had spent lifetimes adding to its collection. Then he thought about Titan's Edge, about New Vancouver, about humanity's children who would never see the homes their grandparents built. Fire, Park ordered. Kinetic rounds traveling at relativistic speeds struck the Eternal Archive. The crystalline structure shattered into billions of fragments. 12,000 years of Krell history vaporized in seconds. The psychological impact was immediate and catastrophic. Krell across the galaxy watched their heritage destroyed. Chancellor Vorix's color shifted to black, a shade that hadn't been recorded in living memory. It was the color of grief so profound that it bordered on madness. They destroyed the archive, Vorix whispered, his voice breaking through translation. They destroyed our soul. The humans struck again the next day. This time, the target was the Great Garden of Threns, a living ecosystem that had been cultivated for 6,000 years. It was burned to ash by incendiary weapons. Then the Velnith song crystals, geological formations that produced harmonic resonances considered sacred. Shattered by sonic weapons, each attack was surgical. Each one avoided casualties but destroyed something irreplaceable. The message was clear. If the Confederation wanted to take what humanity valued, humanity would take what the Confederation cherished. Council member Thera addressed the emergency session, her serpentine body coiled tightly in distress. They're not fighting a war. They're waging cultural genocide. They're destroying our history, our heritage, everything that makes us who we are, as they promised they would, noted Drex quietly. They warned us. We didn't listen. Chancellor Vorix struggled to maintain his composure. His color fluctuated wildly, cycling through emotions faster than his physiology could handle. We cannot let this stand. We must break them. We must strike at Earth itself. That will only make it worse, Drex argued. Don't you see? They want us to attack Earth. They're goading us into it. Then what do you suggest? Vorix demanded. That we surrender? That we accept humiliation from a species that has been in space for barely a century? I suggest we recognize what they're trying to tell us, Drex replied. They will not be conquered. They will not be controlled. And every attempt to force them will cost us more than we can afford to lose. But pride is a powerful force, especially for those who have never tasted defeat. Vorix ordered a massive strike force to assault the Sol system itself. 500 ships, the largest single fleet humanity had ever faced. They would attack Earth's defensive stations, blockade the planet, and force humanity's surrender through sheer overwhelming presence. Admiral Chen received the intelligence reports and smiled grimly. They're doing exactly what we predicted. Execute Phase 3. Phase 3 wasn't about defense. It was about making victory meaningless. As the Confederation fleet approached Sol, they found not a desperate defensive force, but a pre-recorded message from Admiral Chen playing on loop. Welcome to Earth System, her recorded image said calmly. You've come a long way to achieve nothing. Every military installation you see is automated. Every defense station is unmanned. Every satellite is remote-controlled. You can destroy them all if you wish. You'll gain nothing but scrap metal. The recording paused. Earth itself has been prepared. If you attempt orbital bombardment, our planetary defense grid will activate. We cannot stop you from destroying our homeworld. But we've placed fusion devices at strategic points across the planet. If we detect incoming fire, they will detonate. Earth will die, but it will take your fleet with it. 500 ships gone in nuclear fire. Another pause. If you attempt to blockade us, we'll simply outlast you. Our food is stored. Our water is recycled. We can survive for decades if necessary. And while you sit here watching us, our ghost fleet will continue to destroy everything you value. Your monuments, your history, your cultural centers. We'll burn them all. The recording ended with Admiral Chen leaning forward, her expression carved from ice. You started this war thinking we would break, that we would see your power and surrender. You were wrong. We are not the Krell or the Velnith or the Thren. We are humans, and we learned a long time ago that some things are worth dying for. The question you need to ask yourself is, are you willing to lose everything to win nothing? The message repeated on an endless loop. Commander Zelrax, now leading the assault force after his experience at Titan's Edge, sat in his command chair and felt the weight of futility crushing him. He could destroy Earth, he had the firepower. But what would it achieve? Humanity would die, yes, but they would take his entire fleet with them. And the Ghost Fleet would continue its rampage through Confederation space, destroying everything that gave their civilization meaning. This wasn't war, as the Confederation understood it. This was mutual annihilation as a negotiating tactic. Zelrax opened a direct channel to Chancellor Vorix. "Your Eminence, we need to talk about peace." The word felt foreign on his tongue. The Krell didn't make peace. They dictated terms, but humans had taught the galaxy a new lesson. Sometimes the only way to win is to make sure everyone loses. And faced with that reality, even pride has limits. The Treaty of Sol was negotiated over 6 months. The terms were simple. The Confederation would recognize humanity's existing colonies, including those in protected zones. Humans would accept observer status in the Confederation, but retain full autonomy. Neither side would pay reparations. Most importantly, both sides would rebuild what had been destroyed. Together, Ambassador Jackson stood in the rebuilt Eternal Archive, watching Krell artisans work alongside human engineers. Chancellor Vorix approached, his color a subdued blue. "I still don't understand your species," Vorix admitted. "You were willing to destroy everything rather than compromise." Jackson smiled sadly. "We learned that lesson over thousands of years of human history. Freedom isn't given, it's taken. And the price of freedom is the willingness to lose everything to keep it." "A harsh philosophy," Vorix observed. "Yes," Jackson agreed, "but an effective one." Vorix's color shifted slightly toward purple. "Perhaps. But I wonder what the galaxy would look like if everyone thought as humans do." Jackson looked at the reconstructed archive, at species working together to rebuild what war had destroyed. "Maybe we'd have fewer wars," he said quietly, "because everyone would know the cost." In the darkness of space, the Ghost Fleet stood down. The Confederation licked its wounds, and humanity learned that sometimes the greatest victory is teaching your enemy that defeating you isn't worth the price. The human reply to war had been simple: burn everything, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson.